It is easy to believe that Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China, was simply the rightful son of a king, that he inherited the throne just like every ruler before him, and that his power was legitimate, natural, and unquestioned. But what if I told you this was one of the most deliberately hidden stories in all of Chinese history, and that questioning just one detailed identity of his father could shake the very foundation of an entire empire? Because the truth is, Qin Shi Huang may not have been the son of the man history claims. His birth might not have been a matter of destiny or bloodline, but a carefully engineered political transaction. If that surprises you, good, because this isn't just gossip. This is the kind of truth historians tend to avoid, and official records refuse to speak of. If you're interested in uncovering the other side of history, the side that operates behind the curtains, consider subscribing. We are about to go much deeper than your textbooks ever dared. Our story begins in a city called Handan. In winter, Handan was freezing cold. The wind felt like blades scraping across your face. People walked with their collars pulled high, their eyes narrowed to slits, trying to survive not just the cold, but the constant anxiety of a city living on the edge of war. And hidden in that city was a secret that would change the fate of all China. That secret began with a young man named Yiren, from the state of Qin. But he wasn't treated like royalty. He was a hostage, sent by Qin to the rival state of Zhao as a form of political insurance. If relations between the two states soured, Yiren would be the first to die. No one expected him to ever return home. No one thought he would live long enough to matter. But history doesn't always change because of kings. It often changes because of the people who are overlooked. And most often, it changes because of a woman. Her name was Zhao Ji. In a tavern in Handan, lit by flickering lamps and filled with whispers and smoke, there was a woman who had no idea she was about to become the mother of an emperor, and a question mark that would haunt history forever. Her name was Zhao Ji. She wasn't royalty, but she wasn't lowborn either. She could dance, play music, and speak cleverly without seeming to. She wasn't the kind of woman whose beauty stuns a room into silence, but the kind whose eyes seem to understand everything. And in times of chaos, a woman who understands the world is a weapon. The only question is, who will get to wield her? Enter Buwei. While the hostage prince, Yiren, was invisible, ignored, and basically waiting to die, a man named Buwei appeared. Your textbooks probably call him a merchant, a shrewd investor who bet on the right future king. But textbooks have a way of simplifying complicated truths into neat little stories. The real Buwei was not just a merchant. He was a master of capita, connections, and human ambition. He was a power broker who could shape the future using people, favors, and leverage. He didn't just help Yiren. He acquired him. Yiren didn't need noble blood, or skill, or even the desire to rule. What they needed, what every future ruler truly needs, is a story. A story that others would believe in. A story that makes power seem rightful. And the seed of that story begins with a woman. When Buwei first saw Zhao Ji, he didn't see beauty. He saw utility. He likely thought one simple sentence: this woman can be used. Zhao Ji, in turn, understood him instantly. As the story goes, she poured him wine, leaned close, and whispered, "You didn't come here for the drink." Few women could say that to a man like Buwei. Even fewer could survive after saying it. She didn't wait to be drawn into the game. She stepped onto the chessboard herself. She chose survival. She chose power. She chose a future. Buwei didn't need a gentle companion. He needed a woman who could act, endure, gamble, and perform. And Zhao Ji understood that better than anyone. So when Buwei gave Zhao Ji to the prince, Yiren, it wasn't an act of love, or desire, or even sacrifice. It was strategy. It was a deliberate construction of legitimacy. Soon after, Zhao Ji became pregnant. And that is where the silence in history begins. The question that terrified an empire. Whose child was it? Was it Yiren's? Or was it Buwei's? If the child was Yiren's, he was a rightful heir, a legitimate prince of Qin. But if the child was Buwei's, then the future of the entire Qin Empire belonged to a different father entirely. This wasn't just a scandal. This was about the very legitimacy of an emperor. Everything, the laws, the loyalty of his armies, his command, his subjects' obedience depended on the answer to that one question. And so, history buried it, but everyone involved already understood. This child was no ordinary child. The newborn was named Yingzheng. Later, the world would call him Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor. But he didn't grow up like royalty. He grew up in a land that hated him. The people of Zhao despised the state of Qin, and they took out their hatred on this young boy. But Yingzheng didn't cry. He didn't fight back. He learned to remember. He learned a silence that could cut, a stare that could freeze, and a heart that could wait. He wasn't raised as a child. He was forged into a wolf, shaped by years of humiliation. Eventually, Yiren died, and Yingzheng became the king of Buwei, became his chancellor, the most powerful man in the state. Zhao became the queen mother, enjoying immense wealth, luxury, and influence. It was a perfect web of power, until, that is, Yingzheng grew old enough to understand a crucial truth. As long as the past exists, he is not fully king, so he removed Buwei. Not by a loud, public execution, but by forcing him to commit suicide quietly, without scandal. Then, he isolated his own mother, Zhao, not out of hatred, but because even a whisper from her could undo the legitimacy of his throne. He wasn't just erasing his enemies, he was erasing his origins. When he finally unified China, people believed it was an act of conquest, a pursuit of power and glory. They were wrong. It was an act of silencing the questions, silencing the rumors, silencing the doubt. He was silencing the world that had once looked down on him. He didn't unify China just to rule it. He unified China so that no one could ever again challenge who he was. So now, the question comes to you. If Yingzheng was not Yiren's son, was the Qin Empire rightful? Or was it the greatest successful usurpation in history? If he was Buwei's son, was Buwei his father, or was he simply the first enemy that Yingzheng had to eliminate on his path to absolute power? And Zhao. Do you think she regretted her choices, or did she, the woman who understood everything, understand this outcome better than anyone? What do you believe? Let me know in the comments. Because history doesn't have just one answer. History belongs to those who dare to question it. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoy exploring these hidden narratives, make sure to subscribe for more. Ever heard of Yingzheng, the first emperor of Qin? Of course, you have. His story is legendary, but it's just one page in the vast, shadowy history of the Qin Empire. The rise of Qin wasn't just a political victory. It was a fundamental rewriting of how power works in the human world. A new blueprint for total control. And so many truths were buried beneath the foundations of that empire. Truths that history conveniently forgot. Think about it. The system of collective punishment, where a single person's crime could erase their entire family line from existence overnight. Imagine the constant fear. Then there were the scholars, the brilliant minds of the age, who simply vanished. Their crime, having ideas that threatened the absolute authority of the throne. Their disappearance was a warning to anyone who dared to think differently. And the Great Wall. We see it as a monumental defense, a symbol of strength, but it was also a graveyard. Countless laborers, worked to death, were sealed within its very structure, their bones mixed with the mortar and stone. It was a barrier built on human sacrifice. This wasn't just construction. It was a brutal display of the emperor's power over life and death. At the heart of this empire was a man obsessed with escaping his own mortality. Qin Shi Huang. Surrounded by alchemists who promised him eternal life, he sent expeditions to find mythical islands of the immortals and consumed strange, toxic elixirs, gambling his own sanity and health in a desperate race against death itself. It was a descent into madness fueled by the ultimate fear. But these are just the stories we can still piece together from the fragments left behind. What about the rest? The quiet records that were deliberately erased, the names struck from all documents, the tombs that have vanished without a trace, and the ruins left unmarked on any map. These are all pieces of a past that someone with immense power did not want us to see. History is never as clean as we're told. It's not a gentle story. It's a narrative shaped by the victors and silenced by those who needed the truth to disappear. But here, we dig deeper. We bring those buried stories back into the light. If you want to see the parts of history that were left out of your textbooks, if you want to understand the shadowy figures who truly built empires, and if you're ready to walk deeper into the fog where the real questions are waiting, then you're in the right place. Subscribe to our channel. Not for the algorithm, but because there is so much more to uncover. Every day, we peel back another layer and get closer to the truths that history tried to bury. Stay with us. The story continues.